right, aloha friends. I'm Brian Gossett, your host with GM Sports Media, and it's another episode of Game Time with the GOSS, powered by Grey Wolf Promotions. If you want to check out some of the best fan gear and t-shirts, check them out at greywolfpromotions.com. My guest today, my good buddy Nolan Ruth, the Parker County Godfather, and our very own GM Sports Media Parker County Insider. You can follow him on Twitter/X at Real Nolan Ruth, as well as check out some of his stories for us at gmsportsmedia.com. Nolan, my buddy, welcome back to the show.
Good to be back, man. And so glad that football is here. It was a long and painful offseason.
Yeah, we're just got through week one of the season. Some great games out there, but we're going to dive in on Parker County. You had two games last week, and we'll start off with that Friday night. It was LD Bell visiting Weatherford, and sort of for several years now, those two are very familiar, having played in district. And it always seems like those games were really close, and we had another close one. LD Bell edged them out at 23-21. What were some takeaways that night?
The biggest one for me was that I actually did not find this out until right before the game kicked off. But in my preview that I wrote for the GM Sports Media website, one of the best players I mentioned actually just weeks before the season or days before the season started decided to go full baseball, and that is McClure, the wide receiver. So when I found that out, I was stunned, and I knew that this game was going to go a lot differently than I had originally thought it was. Uh, However, Weatherford, I'm not going to lie, looked pretty solid, especially defensively. They did not give up a lot defensively. They stopped LD Bell pretty well, held them in check. If it weren't for the first 30 seconds of the game, LD Bell takes the opening kickoff 80 yards for a touchdown. Weatherford fields the ensuing kickoff. First play from scrimmage, fumble. LD Bell picks it up 22 yards into the house for a touchdown. I mean, you take away those 30 seconds, and Weatherford wins this game 21-10. So uh just it's week one for everybody. You know, they had their miscues like everybody did, especially early on. But I thought the Kangaroos, especially after the lightning delay we had with just over a minute to go in the half, or in the first quarter rather, I thought they came out of that delay and they had found their gear and they had really turned it on. Obviously, it fell short in the end. I can go into several reasons about why they fell short in the end, especially in the second half, but it really just all boils down to that slow start. And you can't get off to a slow start when you're a team like Weatherford and really trying to find your identity once again.
Again, you can check out Nolan's season previews, team by team previews, as well as that game recap at gmsportsmedia.com. And just moving forward, what you've seen from Weatherford again sounds like they have to clean up some things like most teams do in week one. But moving forward, are you kind of what are you looking at in terms of the Kangaroos with these next nine games?
Despite the loss, I came away with actually a pretty positive takeaway. I think the Kangaroos are a lot better than I expected them to be. Uh, they really showed a lot. You know, as far as the eye test goes, they showed how good a team they can be, and I think that that's going to play out this week when they play Azle. We're going to learn a lot more about the Kangaroos in the next 3 weeks because they have Azle, Arlington High, and Royce City before district starts, and this is going to be a tough district for the Roos. But you know, if week one is usually the worst game for every team, and you'll hear that from most coaches in the state. And if that was Weatherford's worst game of the season, then they have nothing to worry about. I think this is a team that can make the playoffs still. Again, it's early to tell. Week one is week one. You know, week one for Weatherford was a lot different than week one for Aledo or Brock, right? So it's, you know, despite the loss, I thought it was a pretty positive game. I thought the running game looked pretty good. The passing game needed to be worked on, but the defense for Weatherford was absolutely incredible. Just a stellar defensive performance from the Kangaroos. Just some special teams and turnover miscues that they got to work on. That's going to be the biggest thing.
Then moving to last Saturday, you made quite a road trip to down south, taking watching Weatherford Christian and Sugarland Logos Prep. In that one, Logos Prep rallied back to win that game. What are your takeaways there?
I mean, a lot of the same thing. It's week one for everybody. There were a lot of miscues. I will say personally, in my opinion, I thought the referees got a little flag happy in that second half where Logos Prep scored 22 unanswered points. Weatherford Christian led 16-8 going into the break. Yeah, I thought the refs got a little flag happy, and it did seem like it was more lean towards Weatherford Christian. I'm not going to call them out on bias or anything like that, but it just got a little bit ridiculous. Some of them were easy to see, and some of them I thought were questionable calls. And the ones that but still, you've got to clean that up. You've got to make sure that there's no doubt that there wasn't a penalty on that. So there's some stuff to clean up for Weatherford Christian. Um, they were missing a couple key players with injuries. They'll both be back. I've been told by head coach Nick Jones they'll both be back. So that's something to look forward to. They've got a big test against Perrin, who I was impressed with this week. Mercy ruling Goldberg 46-0. Uh, I think Perrin's a lot better than I gave him credit for. So this week will be interesting to see for those two six-man programs. But Weatherford Christian is going to be fine. This is their first year back in league play. They played an outlaw schedule last year. They went through a coaching change. Justin Tate left. Nick Jones comes in. They're going to be all right, and they're still expected to be one of the top teams in the state. And they looked like it. They really, I mean, they had the game in a very winnable situation with 2 minutes to go. So they're going to be fine. Weatherford Christian people have nothing to worry about. By the way, I got to give a massive shout out to the people of Weatherford Christian, the parents, the fans, alumni. All of our stuff for Weatherford Christian has really kind of blown up, especially in my social media, just with all the thanks and everything for being down there. It was a fun trip, and shout out to the Blaylocks from down in the Houston area. Met up with them down there and got to watch some football with them. Hopefully, I'll see them in December. But yeah, no, Weatherford Christian, they're gonna be all right. They've got a bunch of key pieces there that I think will really put together a solid team. And you can read more about that in the game recap.
And again, talking with Nolan Ruth, our Parker County insider. Follow him on X at Real Nolan Ruth, and check out his stories at gmsportsmedia.com. Also, his Parker County Week One Roundup is online. Check it out, and that's where we'll head next. Some other games in Parker County. Uh, you've got to start with probably the best win among your teams, Peaster, taking down Tolar, who just a year ago was playing in a state championship game. They move up to 3A, but Peaster comes away 10-0, holding Tolar to their first shutout since the 2021 season. And I know Peaster's a young program. This has to be one of them, or if not the best win in their history. Just talk about Peaster.
Yeah, you just touched on it. I think this is the biggest win in Peaster football history to date. Now, obviously, it's a young program, not a lot of history, but yes, this is the most significant win they've ever had. They've been to the playoffs twice, have not won either time. They came really close last year against Clyde. I remember last year we did a state preview podcast for Friday Night Glory, and we were talking about Toller, and I spent 5 minutes talking about how good Peaster was, right? Like trying to back up how good I thought Toller was. And Toller was that good last year. Toller did lose a lot. Peaster lost a lot, though, as well. And so these were two kind of fresh programs, I'd say, but I'd still think that Toller was the easy favorite coming in. They had an extended delay before that game even started. And then finally, once it got started, I mean, it was just I wasn't there, but I've been to Greyhound Stadium, and it's a grass surface. I imagine it was just a mud fest out there. And Peaster came away with the win. The one touchdown came on a quarterback keeper, and they win 10-0, and that is huge. I mean, that's absolutely huge for this program. I remember I was at Kangaroo Stadium because Weatherford and Bell hadn't quite finished yet, and I texted head coach Trevor Owens. I said, please tell me that this final score that I just saw is not a mistake. And he said, it's not a mistake. We won 10-0. And I mean, just, it was so incredible just for me to go, down to my car at the end of the night and just think about that for a second. Like, Peaster just beat Toller. Like, this was in my preview of Peaster, even in my best scenario for Peaster, I did not count Toller as a win. So, I mean, number one, prove me wrong. I love to be proven wrong. But two, just Peaster may be better than I think. I don't think that Toller got any worse. They brought a lot back from a team that played for a state championship last season. So I think Peaster, I think whatever Trevor Owens has been putting in and the work ethic there and just the way they're growing is really, really starting to show. And I think this is the first sign of it. I don't think they're going to have a perfect year, but I do think this is the first sign of something that's really, really good to come for the Greyhounds.
Yeah, I know it's a different year, different team, so it's hard to compare. But I do remember last year you and Professor Diggs going out to that season opener with Peaster and Tolar, and I remember you saying that Peaster looked good and hung around for at least 3 quarters until Tolar pulled away, but obviously a much bigger outcome this season.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, to go from 49-9 loss to a 10-0 win in a season against a team that just played for a state championship, that's huge. That's definitely huge.
Awesome. And yeah, Peaster was our GM Sports Media Parker County Football Team of the Week for week one. So thanks to everyone that voted. And really thanks to everyone that's been sharing it online and social media because that thing is blowing up. I think we're up to like over 60 shares on our Gossip 41 Facebook page. So uh, happy times right now at Peaster, and hopefully they can keep it going. The two notable games, at least on paper, going in, Geyer versus Alito, and then Brock versus Decatur. We'll start with the one that won the game, the Brock Eagles. Similar to Tolar, moving up a class, they go from being a 3A power for years to now 4A. But they go in and they put a statement on the Decatur Eagles, 27-7. What do you think about Brock winning that game?
This was huge. I mean, I put it on X. I posted it, let everybody know. Like, if you read my preview of Brock before the season started, you know that it came down to this particular game. It came down to the opener against Decatur. That was going to tell me all I needed to know about how Brock was going to be this year. They did get the game started before they faced their delay, but then they face a lengthy delay, finally get the game started back up again. And then, I mean, that game was almost a shutout. Decatur scored late in the fourth quarter in some garbage time. Uh, and you come in and you beat a state-ranked Decatur team that's been in the semifinal the last 2 years in not even just one classification, but two full divisions above you. You're talking 3A Division One to 4A Division One. That's a big deal. And especially with the way Decatur's been on the upswing. And Brock, we were worried about because they lost a lot from last year's team that I thought was one of the best Brock had ever seen. And so that was a big, big deal. And from everything I heard, shout out Eric Morris, who does color for the Brock Sports Network. He let me know. He said this game could have been a lot worse. We, gave them a lot, and we still won 27-7. So I have no fear about the Brock Eagles for the rest of this year. I won't be there this week, but I'll be there next week when they play Aubrey. And I can't wait to see this team and see what just makes them click and what makes them so special. But this was huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah, I don't know if I should do this, but I'm going to do it anyways because this I could go real downhill from here. But I got to our defending champ, Professor Diggs, taking Decatur in the pick'em. So I gotta bring that in. But again, bringing that up, I might have just jinxed myself, and it might be real ugly from now on. But
Altogether, he had a better week than I did, but at least I got that game. At least I got that game.
yeah, shout out to War too that being 10-0,
Undefeated,
yeah.
yeah.
So shout out to him. And then we'll talk about Alito and Geyer. You know, they've kind of had this sort of non-district rivalry the last few years. And Geyer coming away with a 35-30 win and snapping, I believe, Alito's 30-game win streak. I think Geyer was the last team to hand him another loss too. But what do you think about that game?
Everyone who is texting me and blowing up my DMs from Alito needs to take a step back, take a breath, have a Coke and a smile, and calm down. Um, I mean, this was a game that we went into knowing the chance of a loss. Now, does it sting? Yes, because Alito pretty much early on had dominated the whole game. They led 16-9. And then we're going in for a third touchdown. Like this game looked early like Alito was going to have it pretty well in hand. Then you get a block punt for a touchdown. Then when you score your third touchdown right before the half ends, you do a squib kick that ends up going 80 yards to the house for a touchdown to tie it at half. It's all just a bunch of special teams miscues that even head coach Robbie Jones said we looked like we've never practiced it, and we practiced every day, and that's just unacceptable. So knowing this Alito program and knowing how Coach Jones is going to handle it, Alito fans can calm down. It's going to be okay. They got Lancaster this week. I will be there on Friday. Yeah, it's a bunch of special teams miscues. From what it sounded like to me, Gavin Beard, the new quarterback, didn't have a really bad game. The offensive line probably needed a little bit of work, maybe some work a little bit more in the secondary, but it sounded like it was a pretty decent game from Alito when you take away those special teams miscues. So it's a lot like Weatherford. You take away those 30 seconds at the beginning of the game for Weatherford and LD Bell, Weatherford wins that game. Well, guess what? You take away that block punt for a touchdown, and you take away that kickoff return for a touchdown, Alito wins this game. Like it is week one, and it's week one for everybody. Geyer didn't look perfect coming out. LD Bell, despite the quick start against Weatherford, they didn't look perfect coming out. Their offense looked atrocious in their first actual drive. It's week one. Calm down. That's my message to Alito fans. Stop texting me. Stop DMing me. We are fine. It's going to be okay. But no, really that's all my thoughts. I mean, this is an Alito program that is used to rocky starts like this. They're going to be just fine. This game ultimately, Geyer's 6A, Alito's 5A. This game ultimately means nothing come December, right? Now, will it affect the actual record? Sure. But this game had nothing to do with getting into the playoffs. It has nothing to do with seeding, and it definitely has nothing to do with a potential state championship in December. Please calm down. Alito's going to be fine. I think Alito beats Lancaster this week. I think they clean it up and they go into district play next week pretty fired up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a high standard there in Alito, so they want to be 16-0 every year. But let's not forget, we just mentioned it. Their last loss before week one was Geyer again, only what, 2 years ago? And
2 years ago.
And what happened then? They went on to win state.
They went on to win a state championship.
So last time they lost a season opener, state champs. So yeah, Bearcat fans.
And that one wasn't even the season opener. They lost back to back. Parish Episcopal was the season opener that year. They were 0-2 to start the year. Yeah. So this is an Alito. So look, Alito schedules hard non-district games. As a matter of fact, everybody in Parker County pretty much schedules hard non-district games. And they do it for a reason. So, and this is the reason. The flaws were exposed. Let coach work. Let the players work and get better. And then come December, we'll be talking about whether or not that game mattered, which ultimately will not.
Real quick, again, you can read up on his Nolan's week one roundup on gmsportsmedia.com. But just thinking off the top of my head, some pretty good wins in week one from Azo Christian. You touched on it a little bit, Perrin Witt. Trying to think if there's any other winners, but overall, we talked about this last week. Overall, it was a good week for Parker County.
Yeah, and Weatherford Grace Christian, second-year program, still independent and six-man, getting their second win over Perrin's JV in the game before Perrin mercy ruled Goldberg at Pirate Stadium. So interesting roundabout way that worked out on Thursday night. But yeah, it was a good week overall. Parker County went 6-6. We don't have to get into the losses because I'm going to rip some teams apart if we get into some of the losses. But no, the wins were good and the wins were solid, and I could not be more happy for those that won. And then a couple of them that lost, they were acceptable losses. It's non-district. You're working out your flaws. Yeah, you were right there. So
awesome. Again, Nolan Ruth, or Parker County Insider at Real Nolan Ruth. Yeah, week two, and we'll just start with your game, Lancaster versus Aledo on Friday night. And talked a little bit about this with our buddy Mark Henry on his show on the Mark Sports. Um, I mean, coming into the year, that's one of the games to watch. But now that both teams are 0-1, that's both teams are just going to be even hungrier. So to me, it kind of feels like a Guy or Alito game where it's 35-30 or somewhere in that range, and I'll get your opinion on it. But um, again, you don't win championships here in August and September, so you don't want to be 0-2, but you'll be all right. I mean, Alito again 2 years ago starting 0-2, then they won 14 straight to win their 11th state title. Lancaster last year, I think, finished the regular season 5-5 before winning, going like 3 or 4 rounds deep in the playoffs. So, but there's a lot of talent there, obviously, on the field there on Friday night. Just what are your thoughts about that game, that matchup?
Look, neither team looked stellar in their opener. Lancaster did not look the greatest against North Crowley, even though that game was really, really close. You can say the same about Aledo. Aledo did not look super stellar against Tenton Geyer. And even though that game was really, really close, that's what intrigues me about this matchup is these two are similar in a lot of ways, especially in the skill positions. Now, it's in the trenches. I think this game is going to be won, which ultimately I think was the case in the Lancaster North Crowley game. I think Aledo gets the push up front. You know, their offensive line struggled a little bit to give Gavin Beard some time. Their D line got some pressure and was able to stop and prevent the run. That's going to help them against Lancaster for sure. I don't have a solid read on this game. I wish I could say I did, but that's kind of why I'm going to this game, is so I can get a solid read on these teams. But from everything I've gathered and all my research and what I've heard from people who were at Saturday's game between North Crowley and Lancaster or Friday's game between Geyer and Aledo, it sounds like these teams are pretty even on paper, especially in the skill positions, and that's where I expect it to be. The one fear I still have for Aledo is in their secondary. Uh, Lancaster showed their trademark Lancaster speed that they just always seem to have. So I am curious to see how the secondary is going to look for Aledo. I'm curious to see how the Lancaster offensive line is going to look against Aledo's defensive front four, which which was really solid this past week, and actually off, kind of away from the record, was actually really hyped up to me this past offseason. So I think it's going to be a solid game. I still give Aledo the edge here. I know that again, you take away special teams miscues against Geyer, Aledo wins that game. I think everything that Aledo showed on the field showed that they're still a solid team, and I think they're one of the most solid teams. And I think they'll get a chance to show it, and I don't think they'll miss the opportunity to take advantage of that today or today this week.
And just real quick, some other matchups. It sounds like there's one Parker County showdown with Azo and Weatherford. Um, that might be the other game to watch. But yeah, just some quick hits here around Parker County in week two.
All right, I'll go fast. The Weatherford Azle game, that's going to be key for both teams. Azle obviously beat Abilene Cooper by one touchdown in a very high scoring game. And then I saw just how poor everybody else in that district performed, especially Brewer, Fossil Ridge. Azle looks primed like they could be the fourth playoffs team in their district. So it'd be huge for the Hornets, but it'd also be huge for the Kangaroos to bounce back after the LD Bell loss and just show what they actually have. Moving down to Springtown, this game is huge. If the Porcupines don't at least keep it competitive against Graham, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. I'm already disappointed after a 21-20 loss to Joshua. I mean, that should not have happened. But yeah, if they don't keep it competitive against Graham, we could be looking at a dark year for the Porcupines. So I'm going to be keeping my eyes on what happens in Springtown. Brock is playing Lake Worth. I don't expect the Bullfrogs to give the Eagles much competition, especially after what happened in Decatur last week. I think this is a good Brock win. Keep your eyes on Peaster. After a game like beating Toller 10-0, it kind of can be a hangover game when you play a team like Ferris, who kind of comes under the radar, especially when you're at home and you're in your comfort zone. Don't get upset at home. So I'll be keeping my eyes on Peaster as well. Millsap has Dublin, an old district rival, who I honestly think could come in with the upset again. Millsap fell to Hamilton, which was a game that I kind of thought was a trap game. You know, Millsap's won that rivalry recently, but Hamilton's been on the upswing, and it's no shock to me that Hamilton got the hot start and Millsap kind of struggled a little bit. Um, it happens. It's week one. Down in the private school ranks, Perrin-Witt and Weatherford Christian facing off. That could be a really good one. Off the top of my head, I don't remember who Willow Park TCA is playing, but I thought they took a step in the right direction this past week, especially with what's going on and what's been going on at school recently. They're getting back to their ways, and it's good to see. I don't know if they come away with a win this week or not. Hazel Christian got a solid win against Greenville Christian. They have a tough schedule. Hazel Christian actually moved up in the six-man TAPS D3 rankings. They're now number 6. So this is a solid program that we need to keep our eyes on. And then Weatherford Grace Christian, they've got an interesting game against Three-Way down by Stephenville. And that Three-Way is an established independent six-man program. I think that this game will be pretty telling to how Grace Christian grows. And that's actually the first of 2 times they're going to play Three-Way this year. This week, I think they're going on the road, and then later in the year, Three-Way comes to Weatherford to play them. So that's all the Parker County schools and just a few quick hits on that.
All right, well, we'll wrap up this episode. Again, tell the viewers what games you'll be covering this week.
So Thursday, not Parker County. I'll be up at Northwest ISD Stadium for Byron Nelson versus Louisville. 2 programs that have both made deep playoff runs in the past 2 years. Louisville, 2 years ago, really stunned the state, taking out Allen in the first round. Went 3 rounds deep, I think, and lost that game narrowly, almost playing for a regional final. Byron Nelson a year ago upset South Lake Carroll, 1 district, goes to play Carroll in a regional final, gets shut out, which was tragic for them. But 2 programs that I think are on the rise in the Northern Metroplex, and I think this is a very under the radar game in DFW this week. I think it's going to be very interesting. And then, of course, on Friday, Aledo Lancaster, as I previewed. Again, I still give Aledo the edge. I think these are 2 very evenly matched teams. I think this is going to be a good one to watch. Saturday, be sure to check out my Oklahoma Sooners playing the Houston Cougars. That one kicks off, I believe, at 6:30. And then TCU, I cover for KillerFrogs.com. They're playing Long Island. I won't be at Amon Carter for this game, but I'll be paying attention to it, and I will have a few thoughts and write-ups about TCU. So, yeah, that's where I'll be this weekend.
Awesome. Well, enjoy those games, some good matchups, and we look forward to more of your Parker County insight. But Mr. Nolan Ruth, thanks for hopping on.
Thank you for having me again.
Once again, Nolan Ruth, you can follow him on Twitter/X at Real Nolan Ruth. Also, his Facebook, Nolan Ruth Sports Report. Make sure to follow that. There's his shout out to Little Bearcats and that medal
It's
there.
been 10 years, by the way. 10 years this year. Yeah.
10 years. But yeah, Parker County Godfather, Parker County Insider for gmsportsmedia.com. Check his stories out. He's doing some good work, and we appreciate him. And well, that'll do it for another episode of Game Time with the Goss. We're powered by Grey Wolf Promotions. Again, check it out if you want some cool fan gear or t-shirts, greywolfpromotions.com. I am Brian Gossett. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy week 2 of the football season. Aloha.